The Sydney gang rapes were a series of gang rape attacks committed by a group of up to 14 Lebanese Australian youths led by Bilal Skaff against Australian women and teenage girls of different backgrounds but mostly white, as young as 14, in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia across several days in 2000. The crimes, described as ethnically motivated hate crimes by officials and commentators, were covered extensively by the news media, and prompted the passing of new laws. In 2002, the 9 men convicted of the gang rapes were sentenced to a total of more than 240 years in jail. According to court transcripts, Judge Michael Finnane described the rapes as events that you hear about or read about only in the context of wartime atrocities. Attacks. Further attempted attacks. A further series of gang rapes were said to have been attempted but thwarted. 4 of the attackers were also convicted for an attack on Friday, the 4th of August 2000, when they approached a 14-year-old girl on a train where she was threatened with violence, punched twice, slapped, and told that she would be forced to perform fellatio on several men and that she was going to be raped. Attackers Bilal Skaff led and orchestrated the 3 August 2000 attacks. He was initially sentenced to a total of 55 years imprisonment but had his sentence for these attacks reduced by the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal to 28 years, with no parole for the first 22 years. However, on the 28th of July 2006, Acting Justice Jane Matthews added another 10 years to his sentence for his role in the 12th of August rape. His original conviction over this attack had been quashed in 2004 and a retrial ordered after it was revealed that 2 jurors had conducted their own investigations at Gosling Park. Bilal Skaff is eligible for release on parole from the 11th of February 2033. In March 2003, Skaff was charged with sending a mail containing white powder to a corrections department official from prison in an apparent hoax terrorist act. In April 2015, he was attacked by 2 other inmates in jail and sustained serious facial injuries. Mohammed Skaff, younger brother of Bilal Skaff, was one of the gang rapists. He was sentenced to 32 years for his role in the gang rapes, but also had his sentence reduced on appeal to 19 years with a non-parole period of 11 years. However, on the 28th of July 2006, he received an additional 15 years, with a minimum of 7.5 years over the Gosling Park attack. Mohammed Skaff will now be eligible for release on parole from the 1st of July 2019. Skaff showed no remorse for his crimes, making sexually inappropriate remarks to female staff at the Caryong Juvenile Justice Center where he was incarcerated, and continued to blame his victims for initially agreeing to go with him because they came out with us as soon as I asked them. His parole was denied in February 2020, with the state parole authority mentioning that it appears that he still blames the victims for his offending, has no victim empathy, and refuses to take responsibility for his actions. His parole was denied again that November. Bilal Hajaid, then 20, was another gang rapist who was convicted and imprisoned for 23 years with a non-parole period of 15 years. Hajaid later had his sentence reduced on appeal. Mohammed Sana Ousi, then 18, gang rapist who was sentenced to 21 years with a non-parole period of 12 years for the 10 and the 30th of August rapes. Sana Ousi later had his sentence reduced to 16 years on appeal. Shortly after Sana Ousi's conviction, his brother and cousin were banned from visiting him in prison for 3 months after a rowdy clash with staff at the Caryong Juvenile Justice Center where he was incarcerated. Shouting broke out when staff removed the visitors after they had tried to pass newspaper clippings to the brothers about their sentencing the previous day. Sana Ousi remained behind bars when denied parole for a second time in October 2011. Parole applications were rejected on 3 occasions. He has been on weekend leave since October 2012 and day leave since April 2013. On the 5th of September 2013, Sana Ousi was granted parole with strict conditions but was not immediately released. The next day, his parole was revoked. Upon release, Sanaousi was to live at his family's home. However, late on the 5th of September, it became known that his two brothers, who also lived there and are linked to the Brothers for Life gang, had been charged, with two others, with a violent assault. The state parole authority met and decided that the previously approved accommodation was not suitable in light of the new information. On appeal, Judge Terence Christie conceded that his brother's crimes had nothing to do with Sanaousi and that he should be released. Sanaousi was paroled on the 10th of October 2013. Among other conditions, he is not to have contact with his two brothers without permission. Mahmoud Sanaousi, brother of Mohammed Sanaousi, then 17, was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months imprisonment with parole available after 6.5 years. He unsuccessfully appealed against his sentence in 2005. He was released on parole in May 2009 but had his parole revoked in March 2010 for his drug use. Mahmoud Kame, then 20, was sentenced to 18 years with a non-parole period of 10 years. Kame unsuccessfully appealed against his sentence in 2004. He was released to parole in April 2013. H. Identity sealed. H has had his name suppressed under court order because of his intellectual and mental disabilities. Then 19, was sentenced to 25 years with a non-parole period of 15 years. H later had his sentence reduced on appeal. A parole hearing was held in October 2013, and he was released in February 2014 under strict parole conditions. T, then 16, was initially sentenced to 15 years imprisonment with a non-parole period of 9 years for his role in the 30th of August rape. He was retried and sentenced to 8 years and 6 months imprisonment, with a non-parole period of 4 years and 6 months. He was released from prison in late June 2007. Mohammed Ghanem, then 19, was the final person to be sentenced and was imprisoned for 40 years with a non-parole period of 26 years for 2 counts of rape. Ghanem, like his co-offenders Bilal Skaf and Mohammed Skaf, showed no remorse for his actions, effectively opting to tough it out at the Karyong Juvenile Justice Center, where he was detained while awaiting trial. There was evidence to convict only 9 men of the 14 suspects. The sentences total 240 years in prison. Racial controversy. Conservative commentators such as Miranda Devine categorized the crimes as racially or religiously motivated hate crimes. She also asserted that much of the media had attempted to airbrush the racial element out of reporting on the crime spree. The victims said that all mention of the overtly racist statements made by the perpetrators had been censored from their official statements because their presence would complicate attempts to negotiate guilty pleas with the accused. Critics also claimed that, if the situation had been reversed, with a gang of white Australian men raping Muslim Australians, who deserved it because they were Muslim, there would have been very different treatment. The Sydney Morning Herald reported that the rapists had stated to a victim during the attack, "You deserve it because you're an Australian and I'm going to fuck you lab style." 2/3 of Muslim and Arab Australians said that they experienced an increase in racial vilification towards them after a number of events including the September 11th attacks, the Bali bombings, and these rapes. New laws. The gang rapes led to the passage of new legislation through the Parliament of New South Wales, increasing the sentences for gang rapists by creating a new category of crime known as aggravated sexual assault in company. Also, in the course of one of the trials, the defendants refused counsel as they believed that all lawyers were against Muslims. This led to the contentious prospect of the defendants being able to cross-examine the witnesses, including the victims, a situation that was averted by further legislation being put through the state parliament. Actions taken by government ministers, including Premier of New South Wales Bob Carr, who publicly identified the perpetrator's background, led to controversy. Ethnic community group leaders, including Kezer Trad of the Lebanese Muslim Association, complained that Carr was smearing the entire Lebanese Muslim community with the crimes of a few of its members and that his public comments would stir up ethnic hatred. The first court case heard under the new sentencing regime concerned the Ashfield gang rapes of girls by Pakistani and Nepalese immigrants in Ashfield on the 28th of July 2002. Role of technology in coordination of the attacks. The attackers used SMS and mobile phones to orchestrate the attack and to phone ahead to other attackers to coordinate transport of rape gang members to the locations where women were being held. Authorities later released some of this material, recovered from the rapists' mobile phones. The attackers texted such messages as, "When you are feeling down, bash a Christian or Catholic and lift up," and "I've got a slut with me bro, come to Punchbowl." Scaff gang rape psychologist. In July 2019, it was revealed that Joanna Natalie Sr., a former prison psychologist who was fired for having a relationship with a Scaff gang rapist and who married another member of the notorious child rape gang, was working with children as a school counselor at Malik Fahd Islamic School. See also Ashfield gang rapes. References. External links, sentence slashed. Gang rapes not, worst category. The Guardian, racially motivated crime and punishment. ABC TV's Four Corners. For being Lebanese. ABC TV, sentencing hearing of Bilal Scaff, the young Muslim man in Australian public discourse by Kieran Gruel, Transforming Cultures eJournal, Volume 2, No.1. November 2007. Davies, Lisa, the 19th of January 2013. What we learned from Scaff case. The Sydney Morning Herald. Retrieved the 19th of January 2013.